Hi everyone, I'm Dolly Parikh from Overseas Volunteers for a Better India. On behalf of the OVBI Water team and partners, I would love to welcome you to the OVBI Water Live series. We have a special guest today who's inspired thousands of people to join the movement to eliminate water poverty in Maharashtra. We'll see him soon, but before then, let's watch a quick video about his work.
The wheels of time keep turning. Seasons change. The blistering heat of May and June creates a yearning for the rains. And then, every year, the monsoon arrives. Sometimes it is plentiful, sometimes scarce, but come it does every year. And so it did this year too.
त्या दिवशी पहिला पूर आला आणि शिशिट्या अशा टुम भरल्या, तळे टुम भरले. सकाळी 7 वाजता जाऊन पूर्ण लोक ते डोंगरा बघून असे उड्या मारत होते, तळेत नाचायला पवायला लागले, असे हे माझं पाणी म्हणून.
मी जे शेततळ तयार केलं तर ते शेततळ भरलेलं बघून मला आनंद मायलने मी पहिल्यांदा उडी मारल्यावर बाकीची लेकरं उडी मारली.
अनुभव असा म्हणजे की पावसामध्ये पोरांनी लगेवर जाऊन शूटिंग केली, एवढं भारी दिसायला की वाटायला लागलं या काम संपायला नाही पाहिजे, पूर्ण डोंगर शिवारच निघायला पाहिजे होता.
In thousands of Maharashtrian villages this year, it is as if a miracle occurred. This year, the rainwater did not leave villages. It made its home there. This has been achieved by a people's movement. The fruit of the sweat and toil of those who took on the mission of making their villages water abundant by taking part in the Satyamev Jayate Water Cup contest. Both government and prominent leaders of industry generously supported this people's initiative. The contest started in the year 2016 with just 3 talukas in Maharashtra. Expanded in 2017 to 30 talukas and grew 25 times this year, 2018, to reach 75 talukas across Maharashtra. More than 4,000 villages participated. Over a 2-month period, more than 20,000 villagers were trained in the science of watershed management. These villagers then returned to their villages to sow the seeds of a water revolution. The Water Cup was scheduled to begin on the 8th of April. But from the night of April 7th itself, lakhs of water warriors, fully armed to take on the drought, kept vigil for the battle to begin. At the stroke of midnight, their army launched a determined attack to vanquish drought. A wild dream to free oneself in just 45 days from the shackles of drought with one's own might. People joined hands, putting aside social divisions and old rivalries. With every passing day, the army of water warriors grew. In these 45 days, the rising and setting sun saw many a miracle unfold. Somewhere it was woman power, elsewhere the determination of youth, or even an army of children.
मी सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांना तयार केलं व आमची एक घट्ट तुफान सेना तयार करायची. माझी 150 मुलांची टीम आहे.
Even seniors, uncaring of their aches and pains, worked obsessively towards a brighter future for coming generations.
आम्हाला एक तकलीफ होती, संध्याकाळी अंग दुखते, पैसा नसतो इंजेक्शनला, तर 2 ला सुटल्यानंतर दुसऱ्याचा रोजगार करायचा, तिथून 4 रुपये आणायचे आणि मग इंजेक्शन करायचं. पण काम नाही सोडलं, जशी सुट्टी घेतलीच नाही.
अन्न गुडगुडे, नाल गुडगुडे, दुष्काळ.
by day, the sun was witness to people's madness. And when by night the baton was handed over to the moon, it saw thousands doing Shramdan without a moment's rest. Those 45 days became a festival of labor, full of song, dance, and celebration. By the time the competition came to a close, this grand obsession had transformed the face of entire landscapes. Driven by this collective madness, villagers who had once struggled for a single tanker of water, created with their own hands structures that could harvest more than 222 billion liters of water. If filled in tankers of 10,000 liter capacity, this quantity of water would fill more than 22 million tankers. And if these tankers were lined up, they would circumnavigate the earth more than 3 times. It is this human spirit, this determination, that has kept the rains captive in village after village this year. People are celebrating their newfound affinity with water. Nature and mankind are dancing with joy as they become one.
That was phenomenal. I would love to kind of introduce first Deepak Bhatkal, my colleague at OVBI Water team. And he is also our director that leads the Maharashtra project and the Rajasthan project. Welcoming Deepak Bhatkal, who will eventually introduce you to Satyajit Bhatkal. Hey, Deepak.
Thank you, Dolly. Good morning. Good morning, everyone from California. As Dolly said, we have a special guest today, Satyajit Bhatkal. Satya is CEO of Paani Foundation, and which works with the mission of making rural Maharashtra drought-free and prosperous through a people's movement. They started in 2016, and since then, with the participation of 10,000 plus villages, they've trained 15,000 trainers, and their movement has led to creation of water capacity of 550 billion liters, right, of water storage in Maharashtra. And so that's pretty awesome. I mean, you know, we have a lot to learn from him in the session today, and I'm pretty excited. So prior to setting up Paani Foundation, you might have seen this, series. So Satyajit created this Satyamev Jayate, which was India's leading TV show at that time, and it's focused on addressing social issues. And a ton of social issues were addressed in that, and sparked conversations, and it broke several taboos in the society. So he's a great communicator and a filmmaker. So Mr. Bhatkal has also directed the award-winning documentary Madness in Desert, which is the making of movie Lagan. It's my all-time favorite as well. And he has co-written and directed in Bombay Lawyers. It is an acclaimed NDTV series. And then also he's produced and directed a children's film called Zokkomon. It's produced by the Walt Disney Company. So there's a lot we have to talk today with Satya. And Satya, welcome to OVBI Water Series.
Thank you, Dolly. It's a real pleasure, and good morning to everyone in the US. Wonderful to be here.
Great, Satya. Thanks for staying up late. I know it's late on a Sunday night, so I really appreciate it.
Bombay doesn't sleep, so we're just getting started.
Oh, wonderful. So Satya, I mean, it's amazing to see your journey. You started as practicing law, and then been part of some of my favorite TV shows as well as the movie, and then with the Paani Foundation. So how the journey's been?
I never look at it in terms of kind of career choices. I look at it more as a journey in life, and every decision I've taken in that sense has been organic. So it's one thing led to another. So it's my experiences as a lawyer which led me to believe I had a story to tell. And I happened to work on Lagan, and again there was a story which I felt was a story to tell. So I ended up making a film on Lagan, which so one thing just kept leading to another. And Satyamev Jayate, as a show, what it really did is that it opened our eyes to the possibilities of using communication for social change. So Satyamev Jayate was never intended to be a show. It was not a show about TRPs. It was not a show about viewership, advertising support. It was a show with a very clear mission, and that mission was to investigate the possibilities of using communication for social change. And Deepak, what happened in that show was very, very interesting, is that we discovered, to our absolute delight, that a couple of things we discovered. So the first thing we discovered is that, for every problem our country faces, there are some good people who have found a solution. So this was most reassuring. In fact, I would even go to the extent of slightly provocative thing to say, but let me say it nonetheless. There is no problem in India which has not already been solved. Our problem is therefore not the solution itself. The solution exists. The know-how exists. The problem is that that know-how does not have scale. So somewhere in India, you will find a village, you will find a panchayat, you will find a small town, a small municipality implementing the solution to a problem. You'll find a small group of good people implementing a solution to a problem. The tragedy is that for some strange reason, this good work does not get the scale it deserves. And so when we did Satyamev Jayate, one of our efforts was to give visibility to those good people who are doing wonderful work, in the hope that communication could help to take that work to scale. So is communication a part of this missing puzzle? Because it's a puzzle. Why doesn't good work acquire scale?
Yep.
And we were trying to figure out, will communication help? And we were delighted to find during the show that communication could play a huge, huge role in taking proven solutions to scale. And actually, that's how the journey happened, Deepak. That because we discovered the power of communication, we said, let's work further with this power. And in order to work further with this power, ironically, we needed to shut the show down. Because the show format by itself has certain limitations. Every week you're doing a different topic. तो आपने फीमेल फीटिसाइड पे शो कर दिया, बहुत सारे लोगों ने देख लिया. नेक्स्ट वीक आपने चाइल्ड सेक्सुअल अब्यूज पे किया, उसको भी बहुत सारे लोगों ने देख लिया. फिर आपने ऑर्गेनिक फूड पे किया. So every week you're going to a different topic, and in some sense the focus keeps shifting. So if you want to really harness the full power of communication, we felt we needed to shut the show down and work as communicators, but on only one topic. And that's when we figured out that, let's work on water, because water stands at the intersection of so many other issues. I mean, you work on water. OVBI has been doing such wonderful work. And you know that without water, there is no livelihood, no health, no education, no women's empowerment. So water is like a necessary but not sufficient condition to solve many other problems. So that's why we decided to work on water. And that's how this journey, long journey from, lawyer to filmmaker to Paani Foundation occurred.
Oh, that's quite a journey. And so we understand you started with Paani Foundation, and again you took a very unusual route, right? You started with Water Cup, where you brought in the farmers from 3 talukas, right? Satara, Beed, Amravati, Varud primarily. And so how did you select these talukas, and what was the mechanism and thinking behind Water Cup, and training farmers and then basically running a competition? And that was pretty innovative.
Yeah, so our thinking, Deepak, was this. So we actually invested quite a lot of time in studying the problem. In fact, we took almost a year or year and a half before we launched the water cup. And again, what we discovered is that the solution exists. The technology exists. So the technology, very briefly, in a sentence, is known as decentralized watershed management.
Right.
Conceptually, what are you saying is that the rainwater or water which falls in the form of rain in your village, you have to try and capture as much of it as possible in the groundwater. If you capture it and keep it in the groundwater, it becomes available to you even after the monsoon is over, and it is safe in the groundwater substantially from evaporation. This was the thought. Why is it a proven technology? It's a proven technology because way back in the 70s, Vilasrao Salunke did this in Purandar Taluka, then Anna Sahib Hazare did it in the 80s in Ralegan Siddhi, and then from the 90s, everyone has heard of Hivre Bazar and Popat Rao Pawar, who did it in his village of Hivre Bazar. And these are all villages which acted as oasis in the desert. So these are villages which showed that the technology works, but again, know-how, not acquiring scale. So we were trying to figure out how do we give this scale. And what we felt is that far better people than us have tried to do this just by, delivering speeches or telling people, yaar, ye karna chahiye. So we kept trying to figure out what is preventing it from getting scale. What is the problem that we are really solving for? Is the problem money? Is the problem technology? Is the problem knowledge? What is the problem? And we discovered that while you do need money, you do need knowledge, you do need technology, the biggest problem and the biggest challenge was how do you get people together? Because you cannot solve for water without bringing a community together. And while we talk very easily about communities, the sad truth in many situations in our country, and this is not only true of rural areas, but of urban areas also, is that somehow we do not work very well as a team. We do not work very well to come together to solve our problems. So the central thing that we were solving for, we felt, was social unity. Because people are divided on the lines of political parties, religion, caste, ancient family rivalries, many, many factors. We said, we don't care. Whatever the history may have been. Can we today get people together? Can we get a village to say that, we may have differences of ideology and politics and whatever else, but for water, for livelihoods, for nature, for ecology, we are one. For the development of our village, we are one. And we felt if we can do that, then maybe a lot of other things can get solved. So that's the first thing that we felt. The second thing we realized is that if our primary emphasis was going to be on, reaching funds to villages, there are two problems with it. Problem number one is that there are just so many villages that nobody is going to have enough funds. I mean, Maharashtra has got 28,000 gram panchayats, 44,000 revenue villages. And if you count the bastis and padas, it's over 85,000. Out of these, 145 blocks have been classified as being chronically drought prone. They come in what is called DPAP talukas, drought prone areas program. So that's, 20,000 villages. Who can ever find the funds for that? So any solution which is based on funding is going to come up against a wall. The second problem in this approach is that, let's say you bring the funds in, you create the technological solutions, the structures, who's going to maintain them? Who's got the ownership of it? Look at the condition of any public structure, even a government office. Look at the condition of the toilets there. Look at the condition of the corridors and the pan stains on it. Look at the condition of cleanliness. And you realize that somehow, unless there is a sense of emotional ownership of a structure, it's like going to be like a cat chasing its own tail. You're never really going to catch up with the problem, because by the time you solve the problem for a set of villages, you move on to the next. The first lot of villages, uska problem वापस शुरू होने वाला है. So we said, what if we work in a different paradigm? We don't go as solution providers. We go to play a particular role in trying to create an ecosystem. And what is the heart of that ecosystem? It's there in the film which you just saw, where that woman says, "Kai pahije, pani pahije." What do we want? We want water. Kon denar, me denar. I am going to bring the water. So can we make this the people's problem to solve? It is not only their problem to solve, it is their privilege and right to solve it. And can we do so by making it fun? Because we felt was critical. If we make it as a burden, as a duty, then it becomes something which is onerous. I'm running away from it. But if we are able to transform it into, यार मेरी identity in life ये है कि मैंने अपने गांव का problem solve कर लिया, then suddenly instead of it becoming an onerous duty, it becomes a joyful exercise. It gives me a sense of pride. It gives me my sense of identity. So in order to do this, we said, let's come out with a completely different design. So the design came up with was the idea for competition, which we call the Satyamev Jayate Water Cup. Why Satyamev Jayate? Because it had goodwill. And the idea was that the participating unit would be the village. The villages are competing with each other in order to solve a problem. But the beauty of this competition is that every village which does good work is a winner. So what does Paani Foundation do? Paani Foundation creates the platform of the competition. Paani Foundation creates the rules for the competition, the judges for the competition, and extremely good cash prizes for the competition. But we don't fund the village. The funding, the village has to liaise with government, find its own villagers, find its own funders. And the last thing that Paani Foundation brings to the table is training, technology. So we invested a lot in training the villages, especially women, in the science of decentralized watershed management and in leadership. How do you keep a village together? How do you keep people together happily? So that's essentially the way we approached, and that's why we came up with a competition design. And that competition design enabled mass participation. I mean, our people footprint would be well in excess of 1 million people, who participated in various ways in Shramadhan, in raising funds, and doing all kinds of things. So it became their work, their emotional ownership. That is why the structures they have built, they are looking after, because nobody has built it for them.
It's pretty amazing.
Sorry for the very long answer.
No, I think this is perfect. So in terms of, there are two major things you brought out in your answer. One is the training, right? And second is community building. So I'll come to training in a bit, but community building is very important, as you have said, it is the society which holds the water together, right? It's the vessel, basically. Society is the vessel which holds the water together. And that's pretty profound. So how did you build that society in the community? And they took that ownership. What really went into making that happen?
Yeah, so I think that's beautifully put, Deepak. Is essentially what we say is that, just even if you want to drink water, you need to bring the fingers of your hand together if you want to drink it with your hand.
Yeah.
In Marathi we say हे ओंजळ आहे. या ओंजळीमध्ये आपण जेव्हा बोटं एकत्र येतात तेव्हा आपण पाणी पिऊ शकतो. When our fingers come together, we can drink the water.
Correct.
So think of all the various elements in society as being those fingers. They all come together, and this includes every strata. It includes the bureaucracy. It includes the political class. It includes industrialists. It includes politicians. So we made an effort to bring everybody together, and I think they really responded magnificently. There were 2-3 things which I think have played a critical role in getting people together, and it's staying that way. Mm-hmm. I think the first thing which played a critical role is that we went back to a very old and ancient tradition of India, which is what we call Shramadhan, voluntary manual labor. India has had a very long tradition of Shramadhan going back thousands of years, where villagers came together for common purposes of various kinds. We decided that this was going to be very, very important. And this was a slightly counterintuitive thing to do, because we are living in a machine age. You two are living in a period of artificial intelligence, robots, driverless cars. And here we are saying that, look, instead of a machine digging a trench, let's do it with hand. And obviously, one doesn't have to be a genius to know that 100 people working with hand for a full day do less work than, a powerful machine can do in an hour or maybe even 10 minutes. But it is not What you do with your hands, it's what happens to your heart. The act of coming together in order to do manual labor, we found, really melts differences, creates love, cooperation, a spirit of can do among people. It brings down barriers of caste, of gender, of politics, of religion. It brings people together in a common cause. So I think if there is one thing which has really helped to weld villages together as a community, I would have to say it's Shramadan. And one of my senior colleagues, Dr. Avinash Paul, he played a very, very major role in inspiring us about the power of Shramadan. So it's interesting. One of the origins of Paani Foundation lie in a visit I made to Satara, where I saw work being done called Ajinkya Tara Shramadan Group. So there's a bunch of people living in the city of Satara who every morning get up at 5 o'clock, land up on a fort called Ajinkya Tara, which is in Satara town. And they would do work on that fort for water conservation, to clean up the fort, to do various nature-related activities. And they do that 365 days of the year. So even on Diwali morning, they'll start their morning at 5 a.m. by doing this work. So we felt that if these people, 40 people they were then, can do this every single day of the year, then surely this can be replicated over Maharashtra. And truly, Shramadan has turned out to be that magic wand which is bringing people together. So I think Shramadan has been one critical thing. At the level of other stakeholders, especially government, politicians, corporate houses, I think there are two things. Number one is the fact that it's clear at all points in time that there is only one agenda to the work that we are doing, which is the development of the village. And I would say work connected with nature. So we put it in Marathi as Sheti Mati Pani. So farming, water and soil. So it's only that. There can be no other agenda. Nobody is allowed to say anything which goes beyond that. So it's a strict non-political platform, which encourages everybody, because everybody realizes that this is goal-oriented. It's meant for transformation of lives today, now. So this is not going to be a platform for anybody to fulfill any other agenda other than kheti, pani or mitti, or koi agenda nahi hai. I think these things have played a critical role in formation of communities and keeping people together.
That is a wonderful insight. Basically, जब साथ में सब साथ में पसीना बहाते हैं, तो all the differences melt away, and that creates a community. So that's amazing. Now, in terms of watershed management training, what we have also noticed is you have done experiential training, right? Not in a classroom, having people come in and then you train them. It's something they go through, they experience it, and then they intuitively they know what they have to do. So how did you design this curriculum and the whole approach towards getting people really imbibe that knowledge and know-how so that they can go and deliver it in their villages?
So Deepak, here I would have to say there are two parts to it. One is the technical part, and the other is how do you communicate. So it's what do you communicate, and the second is how you communicate.
Sure.
As far as what to communicate, we were blessed by having extremely good technical partners who have guided us. So the technical partners have included the government of Maharashtra officers who have guided us. But we had a technical partner in the form of WOTR, who also played a major role in bringing technical rigor to the work that we have done. Later on, Aquadam also has played a very much important role. So these people helped us, these experts helped us in curating the best of what is to be done. What we brought to the table, however, is how it is to be communicated. And here is where our role as filmmakers, as communicators, as storytellers, I think became important. Because one thing which was very, very clear to us from day one, Amir, I, all of us in the core team, what we felt is, Dil pe lagegi tabhi baat banegi. This was our tagline for Satyamev Jayate also. That unless a thing emotionally touches you, you're not going to do it. तो आपको टेक्निकल चीज जो है वो पूरे रिगर के साथ बतानी है, लेकिन साथ साथ उसके you have to feel उसके प्रति लगाव, उसके प्रति भावना. You have to create a can-do spirit and you have to create मोहब्बत about that work. So it could only be done by an experiential training method. And the head of our training, Lancy Fernandez, I think he's done genius level work in terms of various ways by which a relatively dry topic like the engineering surrounding water has been made extremely accessible, extremely emotional. I'll just give you an example of what I mean by emotional. One of the things we do in our first phase training, because now we moved on to second phase, but I'll tell you a first phase training game is called the straw game. In that game, what happens is that there are typically 50 or so trainees who are divided into 4 groups. Each group is asked to nominate a grandfather, a father, and a son. So 3 generations of the family have to be nominated by that group. Once that nomination process each group has done, they have to start the game. What is the game? There is a tub of water and there are straws kept next to it. Next to the straws are bottles. You have to pipette water out of the tub using the straw and push that water with the straw only into the bottle. When the whistle is blown, each team starts trying to put as much water as they can into the bottles. And everybody is cheering, go grandfather. And in short period of time, the grandfathers exhaust the water in the tub. The grandfathers are asked to move away from the tub. The tub is refilled and the fathers are now called. And the fathers start draining water now from the tub. After the fathers are done, the tub is empty. It is the turn of the sons. This time, however, the tub is not refilled. And all the players in the game ask, so how are we supposed to play this game? There is no water left. And we give no reply. And soon enough, it dawns on all the people, all the trainees, that essentially this is a metaphor. The analogy is with what we have done with our groundwater. We have drawn so much of water, we have extracted so much of water using tube wells and pump sets. There is no water left for subsequent generations. And the one emotion which we all of us still have in an otherwise, increasingly, I would have to say, self-centered society, and I include myself in it. The one emotion we all share is that we want our children to have a better life than we had. So when they realize that they have left no groundwater, and effectively that means no water for subsequent generations, it creates a huge emotional impact on the trainees. So the message goes to the trainees through their own realization, through a game, through an activity. And this is done on every instance. So there is no lecture baji. There is no boringness ki, somebody comes and tells them, don't do this, do that. People discover the truth for themselves and it becomes their truth to own. So this has been kind of the signature, and this comes from our background in as communicators and filmmakers.
I mean, it's a great way to communicate and really and pass on this message that why water is so important, and what are you doing to your future generations. So that's pretty insightful, I would say. With Paani Foundation, you scaled in a very big way with 10,000 plus villages. But obviously, there's a lot which happens behind the scenes as a part of the organization and how the organization grows along with it. And basically, I have seen like madness in the desert, and how the movie looks like, how it comes out, but what happens behind the scenes, and the blood and tear you go through and sweat. You have to, basically as a team, you have to go through those moments of hardship. So with Paani Foundation, was there any like madness on the farm, something like that with your team where you felt that, hey, you have to, you have your ups and downs and you had your moments?
So, obviously there are challenges, I would have to say, certainly in peak season on a daily basis, sometimes multiple challenges in a day. And we face them even now. So there are the challenges never stop. Um, but the challenges in that sense, Deepak, are very much out there in the open. See, the central challenge for the approach or the design that we have adopted is that people need to believe in their own agency. See, what's happened is in 70 years, uh, the kind of model of development that we have opted for is been substantially a top-down model, where either government or corporates or philanthropies are providing solutions to people. The net result of all that is this has eaten into the concept of agency of people. The fact that it is my problem is it's my prerogative, it's my right, it's my duty, it's my joy also to solve. So there's been an erosion in the faith that people have in their own agency. So if you ask me the single biggest challenge, I mean, there are multiple challenges one faces on a daily basis, but those are all pale in comparison to this central challenge. How do you ignite a new fire, a new faith in your own ability to solve your problems? And how do you keep that fire burning continuously so that it becomes sustainable with or without Pani? That, I think, is the central challenge that we have faced from day one and which we continue to face right up to this day. The rest of the stuff, people falling ill or, people who are hostile saying or doing or, things, these are relatively minor compared to this. So we keep our energy pretty much focused on just this one thing.
Got it. So again, I'm going back to some of your previous work before Pani. So, I mean, there is one dialogue which says, like in Lagan, Amir Khan says to his mom in the movie, कि हम कोनो बीड़ा उठा ही लिए. So
ये बीड़ा उठा के हमने कोनो गलती तो नहीं की माँ.
Exactly. तो ऐसा तो आपके साथ नहीं हुआ कि भाई ये पानी का कॉस्ट लेके कुछ मतलब इतना सारा इतना बड़ा काम है और हम लोग इसको कैसे कर पाएंगे?
Actually, to tell you the truth, Deepak, we are arriving at that stage now. The truth is that from 2016 to 2019, the kind of momentum that the Water Cup got, and I say this not in a boastful way at all, because I look at it the work that villagers did, not that we did. I think it was unbelievable. It had the momentum of a tsunami. मतलब किसी ने इस प्रकार का मोबिलाइजेशन ही नहीं देखा था कि लाखों लोग अपने घरों के बाहर से निकल रहे हैं, काम कर रहे हैं, etc., etc. See, after 4 years of that work, what we discovered to our joy is that the decentralized watershed management solution had worked, and lots of our villages now were substantially, I would have to say, water abundant. तो जिस गांव में टैंकर से पीने का पानी आता था, वहां पीने के पानी की बात छोड़ो, खेती 3 सीजन करने के लिए पानी है. तो ऐसे कई सारे गांव बन गए. So in that sense, phase 1 of the problem got solved. What our mentors, our guides, and I don't know whether you're familiar with Mr. Popatrao Pawar, who's the Sarpanch of Hivre Bazar, one of the central lessons that we have learned from him is that the real challenge is sustainability. पानी आया, लेकिन पानी जा भी सकता है. और अगर पानी का ठीक इस्तेमाल ना हो, if we do not use water prudently, if we do not treat property as a common property resource, which needs to be used in a planned and systematic manner, then it's just a question of time before all these gains roll back again. So with that in mind, we actually shut down the Water Cup at the height of its popularity. And we launched a new competition, which we've called the Samruddha Gaon Spardha, Prosperous Village Competition. This is a 2-year competition. And the goals that the village has to achieve in this competition are much higher. So a village needs to have forests, it needs to have grasslands, it needs to improve its soil quality, it needs to do soil water management, it needs to handle its water through collective planning, and most importantly, it needs to improve the income of villagers. So if one is to summarize it, it comes at two broad heads, economy and ecology. So पानी का पैसा बनना चाहिए, लेकिन वो पैसा sustainably बनना चाहिए. So the sustainable part is about the ecology, and the पैसा बनना चाहिए is about the economy. And that is what we are now dealing with. And this is really actually our litmus test. And it may well be that we don't succeed, but we are going to give it our best shot. So right now what we are doing is, it's like these villages which are taking part had completed their 10th standard very well, and now they're suddenly going to have to appear for their PhD. So right now हमारी PhD की तैयारी चल रही है, and we don't know, and we may well feel that we have bitten off more than we can chew, but we feel that if we don't attempt this, then we will never ever make the jump to a sustainable program. So maybe at some point in time in the next year, Deepak, I'll be saying that. But right now that time has not come. We don't know the answer to that. The verdict is not yet out.
No, that's amazing that you have realized that all the water which is made available can go away, right? There is a prosperity which occurred with farmers going from one crop to 3 crops, right? So you increase their income by 3 times, 2 times. And this realization has dawned upon you and your team that this is not going to be around forever, because they continue with their water guzzling crops like sugarcane and other stuff like that, right? So Samrad Gaon Cup, prosperous village, and tying it with ecology and sustainability, I mean, this is tremendous. Can you break it down for us, that how are you bringing it about? Because you talked about a lot of things, right? One is having a forest in the village, soil condition, improving soil condition. Like, if you have good soil, then you have good farming, basically good farming output. So how do you bring that soil quality? And then preventing soil erosion, minimizing chemical farming, and then at the same time, while balancing all of this, bringing the prosperity, retaining the prosperity which has been created over the last 4 or 5 years of work, and at the same time really enhancing the quality of it. So, can you break it down for us? How are you doing it?
Yeah, sure. So this is now going to be slightly more involved. So brace yourself for more technical conversation.
Absolutely.
Again, there are 6 pillars, as I said. So pillar number 1 is soil and water conservation, which is what we've been doing all these years. But really, this is now an effort to, we've created a process through which a village will know whether it has exploited fully its entire water potential, for doing soil and water conservation work. So this is the simplest part and out of the way. The second part is water management. What is water management essentially is that you need to have a collective process through which you do 2 things. One is come out with more accurate estimates of the total supply of water in a village. And then based on those estimates, you have to plan for the use of that water. Now, estimating the total supply of water in a village is technically a far more difficult job than what one would imagine. Because this, you see, Maharashtra is primarily a groundwater state. In fact, most of peninsular India is. So this is also true of Andhra, it's true of Karnataka. So when you're in the realm of groundwater, the total quantum available is to a large extent dependent on the capacity of your aquifer. Now, the aquifer cannot be seen, and contrary to what one might imagine, satellites cannot actually estimate the specific yield, as the technical engineering term is called. You don't know the specific yield of a aquifer from satellite studies. So actually estimating कि कितना पानी है मेरे कुओं में, मेरे बोरवेल्स में, ये बहुत मुश्किल काम है. So the first step in that is to start maintaining records. So what are the records that you require to maintain? You need to maintain the records of your well water levels. So well water levels act as a fairly good indicator of uh, of various things surrounding groundwater. I won't go too much into detail, but basically, so we start by training villagers in how to identify what should be their observation wells, and then monitoring the water levels in those observation wells 4 times a year. Using that data, we extrapolated to create a working estimate of available groundwater, which is we help them in that. And based on those estimates, they now need to plan their crops through a collective planning process, because what one knows fairly well is the amount of water required for each crop. So if you know or have a working model of the supply of water, you can then plan your demand in such a way that you do not exhaust available water. So water management is the second thing, and there's a lot of training and there's a lot of science that we teach for this purpose, and which is going on even as we speak. In fact, our trainings go on from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So our training has just got over in maybe 10 villages today. So this is the second pillar of this competition. So far as soil is concerned, Deepak, you're absolutely right. Soil is the underpinning of good farming. It's also the underpinning of good water management, because soil is the single biggest source of storage of water. So it is not your wells, it is not your lakes, it is not your rivers. It is actually in the soil that water is best held. So if your soil has a higher organic carbon percentage, its ability to hold water increases exponentially. So therefore, soil management is, I would have to say, one of the most important things that we do. So we actually test, lakhs of soil samples, and we train villagers in methods of increasing soil organic carbon, which is primarily recycling of organic matter, whether it's crop remains or any other organic matter. How do you work that back into your soils? So it's a long story. I mean, in the sense, so each of these pillars. So that similarly for trees, how do you increase tree cover? The central challenge in trees is not tree planting. You see, in this country, we have this strange obsession with showing off. We planted 1 crore trees and 10 crore trees. और पता नहीं कितने पेड़ लगाए जाते हैं. If you were to just to total it up, India में मतलब खड़े रहने के लिए जगह नहीं होनी चाहिए. इतने पेड़ लगाए गए. लेकिन they don't survive. So the central challenge is not planting. The central challenge is survival. So unless they survive, that planting has got no meaning. नहीं तो ये बात हुई कि हर साल उसी खड्डे में नया आप sapling लगाओ. Correct. So our whole emphasis in our competition is the survival of trees. In this one interesting experiment which we did, incidentally, is the planting of a Miyawaki forest in one of our villages. For those who are interested,
I've seen that video of yours. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Please tell about it.
Yeah. So it's a dense plantation. Many of you all would be familiar with it, and in fact, those who would like to you can YouTube search it down on as Miyawaki Paani, and you'll find it. So basically, it's a dense plantation which in 2 years, fairly dense forest grows with a height of 30-35 feet, and which is self-sustaining after 2 years. Through a technology developed by a Japanese agronomist called Akira Miyawaki, which is widely practiced all over the world. 140 or 150 countries have got Miyawaki forests. And we've seen great results with it. So that's one of the ways in which we are doing afforestation. But really the challenge is not afforestation. The real challenge is just protection. Because if you were to protect our trees, you see, man did not grow the forests of the world. The forests of the world existed before man. We just cut them down. So all that we need to do is to allow nature to do its work. If we allow nature to do its work, अपने आप forest हो जाएगा. So the central task is protection, not so much planting. So that's as far as the trees are concerned. As far as increasing incomes of which is the last point I'm coming to. So this is very, very important, because unless we are able to turn the gains in water into sustainable income and livelihood options, this is not going to last. So again, we believe that knowledge is at the base of all transformation. Knowledge is at the base of all sustainability. So for each of these things, we give training. Pani's job is training. So even for these sustainable livelihoods, we've set a target that a farmer must earn 1 lakh of rupees per acre per year net of costs. So I'm not talking about gross. The target is this net of costs.
That's amazing.
So again, there are multiple things that we are working on and presenting a basket of options based on your needs, based on your climate, and based on your choice. So the village has to choose, but Pani creates a basket of alternatives for villages to earn, or villagers to earn, those kind of livelihood outcomes. So this is the work that we are engaged in right now.
That's tremendous. And I mean, this income challenge, sustainable income, is one of the toughest problem to crack.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to understand is you have created this confidence among the communities, yes, that they can go and solve their problems themselves. With that confidence, newfound confidence, have farmers turned into like social entrepreneurs or starting their own businesses, small businesses? Have you seen that happening in the
Yes, we
villages?
have. Yes, we have. So I think that there is a tremendous kind of pent up energy which is now coming out. So in many of our villages, farmers have started their own farmer producer companies. Yeah, they have, and some of these are quite large and fairly impressive outfits. Many farmers have moved from low value agriculture, because basically if you do food grains and pulses, the amount of money you can earn per acre is relatively limited.
Yep.
But there are 4 avenues of higher value agriculture: fruits and vegetables, spices, and flowers,
Right.
and to some extent animal husbandry. So a lot of farmers have made the jump into high value agriculture. So in Marathwada, which was the epicenter of drought when we started,
Oh yeah.
literally thousands of acres have now come under Sitafal, which is in terms of water intensity, very, very low water intensity fruit with tremendous demand.
Oh,
Some of these farmers are trying to set up processing units to create Sitafal ice cream, Sitafal pulp, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of initiatives happening now. And we are working, this is one of our thrust areas of incubating village entrepreneurship, especially among women.
Amazing. That is, so we are getting closer to our time, and would like to understand, as you and your team, most of Paani Foundation, like core team members are from the city, and now you're working with the farmers in rural Maharashtra. How that has changed you? You have changed farmers' lives. How that
But
has
it's
changed
not true that our core team is from the city. I'm one of the exceptions.
Yes.
So every week we have our Zoom meeting with the core team, of which is around 30 people, and there must be the number of people from the city can be counted on the fingers of your hand. So the bulk of our team is very much farmers, and it's they who have made Paani Foundation what it is, and they're fantastic. I mean, they are extremely knowledge, passionate, dedicated, with years of experience as farmers. So it's very much a Grameen team, and we are very
That's
proud.
great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
They tolerate me and my ignorance.
So that's great insight. Thanks for sharing that. So as you have changed farmers' lives and working through the Paani Foundation, and how that has changed you personally, and then some of your, so basically, what's the experience?
So it's changed me enormously. For one, I've become increasingly unsuitable to live in the city of Bombay, and I cannot tell you how much I'm dying to get out of Bombay. And so if nothing else, I certainly will not live in this city for much longer. That's and I would like to live in a rural or a semi-rural community, especially in the in the last whatever part of my life. So it's something which gives. I would have to say that that nature is a great teacher, and a very gentle teacher, and she teaches us every day, and I think it's changed the way I look at everything, at myself. I feel very ashamed, actually, in many ways, of the life I've led so far, and I would really like to change many aspects of of that, this entire high carbon footprint lifestyle that we lead in cities. It's just completely impossibly unsustainable. And when there are such beautiful ways of leading one's life, which is so much more peaceful and enjoyable and joyous, it just made me aware of my foolishness. So I think Pani has taught me a lot.
That's wonderful, Satya, and I think we would like to have this conversation continue more. We have a lot of questions. Dolly, please, would you help us
Sure.
with the questions?
Absolutely. So, Satya, there have been amazing questions around here. The first is from Aman, and he wants to know if there's a plan to spread Pani Foundation's work beyond Maharashtra. I'm sure you get this question all the time.
Yeah, but it's a important question. So, Aman, all the work that we do is in the public domain, and but we have no plans to move outside Maharashtra. I'll tell you why. Because we never started out with being ambitious about building a big institution. We were ambitious then, and we are ambitious now about building a huge idea and testing it out. So we feel Maharashtra is a big enough geography to test out the idea on scale. If the concept, if the model of a people's movement to bring about change is actually valid, then in that case, all the material that we have is available. We ourselves are available, as to share whatever we can, and which anyone feels worthy. They can pick our brains, they can speak to our team, they can use our training material. So all of this is available in the public domain. But we don't, like Amir, we are very clear, we don't want to build some large institution with a gigantic bureaucracy and thousands of people on your rolls. It's putting emphasis on things that are not our core strength. Our core strength was, if anything, was as communicators, and with an idea that we felt passionate about, that can we use communication to bring about change on scale by bringing people together. If that works, it's really up to everybody else to run with the idea, if there is merit in it. And if there is no merit in it, it didn't deserve to get scaled up in any case.
I think it talks about like challenging other states and other leaders in other states also to kind of roll up their sleeves and do their part also. Here's another question, Satya, from Manu Nambudiri. He's part of our team, and he is asking about the value of initial set of local villagers, influencers, to kick off the Shramdan. Do you encounter negative influencers negatively impacting the Shramdan?
So let me answer. These are two questions. Let me answer both. They are actually very searching questions. So Manu, as far as the influencers are concerned, today we have the influencers. When we started out, we didn't know who the influencer was. So we started out, completely blind, so to say. And you discover as you go along who the influencers are. So we never had either the knowledge who the influencers are, or nor did we necessarily have them, so to say, as being advocates for this cause. The beauty of this model is it's a model based on self-selection. So one of the things which I should have spoken about, but I didn't, and now let me take the opportunity. It's a process of filtration based on dropouts. So while 1,000 villages may have done stellar work, many villages also dropped out in the process. So we treat dropouts not as a setback. We treat dropouts as a natural part of self-selection. People select themselves to do certain kinds of work. So the influencers, some of them discovered that they were influencers through the process of the water cup. So we didn't know who they were. Perhaps they themselves didn't know that they were influencers. So they selected into a process and they played a critical role. The second is, did we face negative influence? Of course we do. And there are always negative influences, and the biggest negative influence comes at the level of local politics, where people feel कि यार फलाना इंसान सरपंच है, तो वो जब सरपंच अच्छा काम हो जाएगा तो फिर उसका नाम बनेगा. I won't let that happen. I'll make sure that this doesn't. So all these kind of things is part and parcel of the process. So we don't look at it as a calamity or a catastrophe. We say that this is a process in which communities have to discover their ways around these obstacles. And those who discover their way around the obstacles will become water abundant, will become prosperous, and will act as a magnet to pull others to emulate this.
We have one question from Smita Siddhanti. Smita Siddhanti lives in the East Coast, and
Yes.
she's involved with the Wheels Foundation as well as the Tide Global. And she's very closely associated with her sister's organization in Varda. And her
Right.
question is, please ask how we can help scale the proven methodology by bringing other NGOs in Maharashtra who can bring many villages under the efforts umbrella.
So Smita, interestingly, this is already happening. So there are villages which are in areas where we don't work, but which on their own, the local NGOs have created their own mini competitions. They use the training material that we have created. So to quite a large extent that has happened, and I have to say that whatever has been achieved by villages in the Water Cup has been achieved to a large extent due to the efforts of other organizations, not Paani. So over 1,000 organizations have worked with villages during the Water Cup, including OVBI. So in various ways, various organizations have supported the villages. So in that sense, this has very much been a people's movement. It is by no means a Paani Foundation thing, and NGOs are already, I think in the process of kind of working towards common goals. So I find that happening more and more.
Thank you, Satya, for answering that. We also have a few comments from Bhupat Rai ji about talking about Dr. Abhay Bang's methodology and his approach. And you may kind of engage with him on our chat later on, and because these are comments. But really amazing ones. One of the things that he talked about is that we should look into how to measure the taking learnings from the oil and gas industry models for estimating reserves of underground. So those are really interesting comments and kind of finding those patterns. So I would just like to conclude this session. We are over the time over here. Thank you so much for joining us today at such a late hour. We are truly inspired by you, your journey, and the impact of work Paani Foundation has done so far. We hope that we continue seeing you working this way, and we can work alongside as we go. To our viewers, we hope this session has inspired you. Many experts believe we have less than a decade to address this challenge in India. So we need all the help we can. We would love for each and every one of you to participate in whichever way possible. It could be funds or motivating people or your families on the ground. Collection of drops create an ocean. Any contribution from you will help us eliminating water poverty in India. Please visit us at eliminatingwaterpoverty.org. Thank you so much, Satyajit. Thank you so much, Deepak, for a wonderful session.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, Team OVBI. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.